Welcome everyone for one last time to Science Policy and Advocacy for STEM Scientists certificate course.
I believe Karina is first. Karina is a PhD student in ecology, and a National Science Foundation graduate research fellow in the Department of Ecology Evolutionary Biology at the University of California, Irvine. She is also a current member of the Orange County Chapter League of Women's Voters. Prior to beginning graduate school, Karina was an Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education Fellow at the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C. And she's going to share some cool experiences in science policy through networking and just provide a student perspective. And with that, I'll hand over to Karina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, Rosie. It's really fantastic to be here. I'm really excited that I get to speak with you all. Thank you for bearing with me. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Great. All right. So as Rosie said, I am a PhD student in Ecology and Evolutionary Biology here at UCI. I'm interested in science policy because my main career goal, at least at the moment, is to try to create systemic change, which we all know is much needed, through evidence-based policy that centers around the community. So really focusing on those who are most effective, the community and the stakeholders. And arguably that can be really effective at the local level. So today what I'm hoping to do is provide you all with my perspective as a graduate student. So someone who is in your shoes, who has just started sort of dipping their toes in the world of science policy, while pursuing my dissertation in STEM, obviously. So here's what I'm hoping you'll get out of my chat today. These are strategies and some knowledge nuggets that have worked really well for me as a graduate student so far in the past year as I've started to pursue science policy. So the first thing that I want you to remember is that networking is really, really important. It's going to open a whole lot of doors for you. Especially beyond academia. You already have a network. I know you all have already been working on informational interviews. Really keep those going. The second part is local engagement. That's a great place to sort of get started in politics and in policy. A great way to impact your community because you live in it, you're a stakeholder, and also a way to get exposure. So you don't necessarily have to be at the federal level or sort of not know where to even start to get started. You can just do it locally. And the last thing is sort of a mantra. You can do this during graduate school. It doesn't have to be a time commitment that takes away from your actual dissertation. It can be done as you're going through your PhD process. I know you keep hearing about networking. This is just a smattering of my network. This is what it looks like as a graduate student, or what it can look like. So I started growing my network and leveraging it when I arrived at UCI. And as you can see, it has snowballed, which is really, really great. So I've got connections at a whole bunch of local organizations, as well as at organizations at the federal level. And those are going to be really useful for me going forward, especially as I start to think about jobs. But this is just to show that I've been doing this for maybe a year now, and it has grown incredibly and really easily. So start with your informational interviews as you've been doing in class. Most people are super happy to chat, especially with students, about their experiences and about science policy. So don't be afraid to send that cold email. Don't be afraid to ask someone you know to connect you with someone else that you want to speak with. And every time that I end one of those informational interviews, I ask who else they think that I should speak with. And that's sort of how you get this web that starts to grow uncontrollably, which is really great. So as you're doing your networking, you're going to find that that really leads to a lot of professional collaborations that you may not have had access to within your lab or even within your department. And with that networking, you're going to end up with mentors outside of academia that are going to provide a lot of guidance and perspective that will help you as you transition from doing a PhD in STEM into science policy, for example. So here are some concrete experiences that I've been able to take advantage that have come directly from that networking that I've been doing. So like I said, it really opens a whole lot of doors. So one of the informational interviews that I did probably last October was with a previous AAAS fellow. I know you all have spoken with a lot of them and had really great speakers. I think some of those people are the people that I've had informational interviews with. And that person just said, why don't you try to organize and lead an event and practice some of those other skills that you may not be using as often as a PhD student. I had never thought of that. So I did. I reached out to Ridge to Reef because I'm a Ridge to Reef trainee, and I asked them if this was even possible, if they could help me with it. And I ended up organizing and moderating a panel with some really great people who are professionals in science policy at the local level. So that's the picture up in the top left. Another thing that came out of those informational interviews was finding out about the California Council on Science and Technology. I didn't even know that existed, but that informational interview brought that to light. And after I had spoken with this person, they were kind enough to send an email a month afterwards, just being like, oh, I found this great opportunity where you can basically have a one-day experience speaking with policymakers about your science while you're doing your dissertation. Because obviously CCST has the year-long fellowship, but this experience, the Science Translator Showcase, was a way for me to just start and not have to commit a whole lot of time and not have to have my PhD first before I got to dip my toes in that water. And then lastly, as a League of Women Voters member here in Orange County, I have gotten to leverage all of their networks and all of their partnerships and start to advocate for policy as well as start to influence it. So at the bottom left, there's me with people from Initiate Justice, people from the League at the state level, and I was there on behalf of the League from my local chapter. And we spoke to Senator Morlack's Senator Morlack's Chief of Staff about ACA 6, which is a bill that's hoping to provide the vote back to people who are on parole in the state of California. So not only did I get to practice advocacy and sort of see what it looks like to try to pass policy, but I also got to be a person who from my local community gets to make an impact. And then through the League of Voters as well, Women Voters as well, I got to give a presentation with my colleague here, pictured Newton Hood, about the importance of environmental justice in climate change and how you need that to make the US democracy work. So that was sort of my first rendezvous in getting to influence a League position. And the League has a lot of people trust the League to inform policies. So I got to start to help inform local policies through the League of Women Voters. So all of these examples are just to say that these are ways that I've been able to prioritize getting involved in science policy as a graduate student without dropping everything else in the process. So I've been able to continue to pursue my STEM research, as well as get involved in these small ways that don't necessarily take up that much time, but are really great for expanding your professional network, getting some exposure to what policy even means, and starting to impact your community in a concrete way. So back to the key points. If you don't take anything else away, please remember these. Network, make sure that you network, keep up those informational interviews, keep asking people to connect you with others, even if they're wildly different, like in a different field. It's going to be really useful to get as many people as possible to talk to you about what they're doing, how they got there, and you'll just have your name out there as well. For me, the most effective way to really get experience in science policy and learn about how to make an impact that's effective and sustainable has been to be involved locally and to try to figure out what it is that my community around me needs and where I can make an impact. And then finally, don't forget, this is absolutely doable as a graduate student. It doesn't have to be a ridiculous time commitment. It doesn't have to be a trade-off between your lab work and your pursuit of science policy. So with that, thank you so much for listening to me. And please feel free to contact me, follow me on Twitter. I'm happy to chat about anything and everything, and even connect you with some of the people that I've been lucky enough to connect with. Thank you so much.